So if there's just one thing that San Diegans can come together on, it is the fierce frustration with the monopoly that is San Diego Gas and Electric, or SDG&E. It seems like every single year SDG&E has double-digit increases on energy costs. This year, we see natural gas more than double. More than double. That's crazy.
Ain't nothing natural about gas.
And there's one way that you can stick it to the man here. You can pull back your reliance on the grid and go solar. My name is Dan Parker with the Best Life Home Team, your San Diego real estate resource. Today we're talking about weighing together the pros and cons of installing solar to see whether or not it's really worth it. And we're going to include a huge change in California policy called NEM 3.0 going into effect later this year that's going to dramatically decrease the financial benefits of going with solar. So make sure to stay tuned till the end where we're going to get into all of those details. And because I'm not getting paid or sponsored by any solar companies out there, I'd like to find out exactly who your favorite solar companies are. Throw them in the comments below so other people can do their own research. All right, so let's get right into it. Is installing solar panels financially worth the investment that you're putting into it? And there are two main things that you have to consider. Number one, are you gonna be purchasing these solar panels or are you gonna be leasing them? And number two is how many panels are you going to need? Let's start by saying you decided to purchase your own solar system. The good news is these solar systems have gotten much, much cheaper. The figures I've seen are around 70% cheaper than these solar panels were just 5 years ago. Now pair that with the fact that we're consuming more and more and we're using more electricity to power our smart homes, you're still coming out on top. So I'm not going to get into all the specifics here. This video is more about finding out whether solar is really going to make sense or not. If it feels like it's going to make sense, of course, talk to our solar company, really dive into all the numbers and all the information to see if it works for you and for your family. But just know starting out, there are different types of panels and they can vary a lot in terms of cost and efficiency. But just to give you a general rule of thumb, let's say it's going to cost around $1,000 per panel between buying the panel and getting it installed. Okay, great, $1,000 a panel, but how many panels are you going to need? Again, there are a lot of variables here that you need to be customized for your exact situation. Not only how much energy are you consuming today, but you also want to future-proof your home. How much are you going to be consuming in the next 10 to 15 years? Do you have a growing family? Do you have family coming to live with you? Are you going to be renting out different rooms? And just knowing that we as Americans, especially as Americans, but everyone across the world, we're consuming more and more energy.
Great energy.
So whatever you're using today is going to be different from 10 or 15 years from now. But again, let's make this easy. A lot of my clients, when they are buying solar, end up getting about 25 to 30 panels. So let's just say this is going to cost around $30,000. To add to the benefit to buying solar panels is you definitely want to consider the incentives that are out there. Usually there are federal and state incentives that you want to look into and ask your CPA about. For example, currently there is a 30% federal tax credit, and that's going to save you a lot of money when it comes to these panels. So taking into consideration the cost of the panels versus the benefits of the panels, the break-even point is usually around the 7-year mark. So that's about how long it's going to take for those solar panels to pay for themselves. But if San Diego Gas and Electric continues with these crazy rate hikes, that break-even point could actually be a lot sooner. It's trying to figure out how much is SDG&E going to charge for electricity again in 5 or 10 years from now, because you're locking into a price today that you're not going to have to be paying 5 years from now. So all these things you have to consider. Although all this is going to change dramatically in the upcoming weeks because there's new legislation coming out here in California. It's going to change the entirety of how you're going to calculate all this. We're going to talk about this in a minute, but just wait because there's a couple of the things we got to mention first. So before you go out and decide whether or not you're going to put solar panels on your home, one thing that you definitely need to keep in mind is what kind of shape is your roof in? So these panels are getting put on your roof. What is going to happen when you ultimately need to change your roof? We need to get a new roof installed. I can tell you, if you have to get your roof installed in the upcoming years, you're going to end up paying around $250 a panel for the roofing company to take them off and put them back on. So if you're talking 30 panels, that's $7,500, which is a big part of the reason why a lot of people wait until they need a new roof, maybe even put a new roof on a couple years early, because that's going to save you a pretty good chunk down the line. But at the very least, just consider the shape that your roof is in and figure out whether that's going to impact you actually getting solar panels or not. All right, so we talked about buying these solar panels. There are some very attractive options out there to lease. Zero money down, and you could start seeing those savings right off the bat. But there are a couple of things that you definitely want to keep in mind, and this is where it starts to get tricky as to whether it's beneficial and makes sense financially for you to get solar panels or not. Two things right off the bat to consider. Number one, you're usually not going to get that tax credit, that big federal tax credit, if you're leasing your solar panels. So that's a huge negative. You're not going to get that tax benefit. Number two, and this is a big one for me as a real estate agent, if you need to sell your home a couple years down the line and you have leased solar, that's going to make it more difficult for buyers to qualify for a loan for your house. So just in simple terms, it's going to make the home a little bit less attractive. It's going to make it a little bit more challenging for them to qualify for a loan. Is it possible? Yeah, in most scenarios, it's possible for them to do that. Just know it will likely have an impact. So to be fair, some of these solar companies have come up with creative solutions to a lease that is going to make it easier for you to transfer this over to a home buyer if you do sell your house not too far down the line, but they do carry their own negatives still. So it's not perfect solutions, but it can make it a little bit easier. And just as a rule of thumb, like I have a personal rule of thumb that I'm going to avoid solar leases as much as possible. If that's your only option, maybe it could make sense for you, but if you have the ability to purchase them or take a loan out to purchase them, that's more than likely going to be a better route for you. And also, just a side note on this, the government also does have some programs like the HERO loan, the Home Energy Renovation Opportunity Program, which is part of the PACE program, which will actually put a lien on your house for those solar panels, making it so that you are going to have to pay off those solar panels when you sell the house. So again, just like these leasing options, it can sound pretty attractive upfront, no money down, it's paid through your property taxes, but having to pay off an extra $20,000 on your solar panels if you sell your house in 5 or 10 years is going to be a big chunk of money that's going to come off of your net proceeds. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, the big changes coming in California. This is coming in April, and this is called NEM 3.0. All right, so here's the deal. The California Public Utilities Commission unanimously voted to approve this new policy called NEM 3.0. So specifically, this is controlling how much utility companies will credit you when you pump electricity back into the grid.
You're gonna give me more money?
This is going to decrease how much they're paying you, how much they're crediting you by about 75%.
Well, that sucks.
So let's think about this logically. Of course, you're only getting solar when the sun is out during the day. So what happens at night? The way that it really benefits you to have solar is that you're offsetting the energy consumption at night with how much energy you're pumping back into the grid during the day. So here's what you really need to know. If you have solar currently, or want to get it soon, I mean, you need to get it like yesterday. Like call up solar companies today. If you're watching this video not too long after I posted this, you have until April 13th to be grandfathered into NEM 2.0. So this is going to give you an average export rate of 30 cents per kilowatt hour versus the average 8 cents per kilowatt hour of NEM 3.0. And so what we're really moving into here is going into this other option, which is getting an energy storage device like a big Tesla battery or something like that. This is going to make you less reliant on the grid, but it's also going to set you back another $5,000 or $10,000. So you're going to need to add that cost on top of what the solar panels are costing you. And the other benefit of getting a battery, which is going to become more and more common, especially here in California, is last weekend we had a power outage on our entire block. We have solar, but we did not have power at our house because it was at like 10 o'clock at night when there was no sun and we're plugged into the grid. Having a battery is going to allow you to have more opportunities to not be so reliant if something like that were to happen. And the last thing you obviously want to consider, this is really, really important, is how much value is solar adding to your house? If you were to sell your home tomorrow, are you going to get back the $30,000 you put into this brand new system? And here's where I can tell you from firsthand experience. I work with buyers all the time. I've seen hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homes with buyers over the years. And I can tell you that when a buyer's looking at a house that has paid solar, they're considering spending maybe $5,000 to $10,000 more for that home than if the solar was not on the home. So if you're looking at it as a whole, the value that they're willing to give back to this house based on the solar is going to be about a third of the cost that went into it in the first place. And of course, a solar battery is going to add onto that cost as well. That is a high value item. Are they willing to pay an extra $10,000 for it? I think probably maybe somewhere in the $5,000 range would make more sense. All right, so let's consider the 7-year break-even points, around 7 years to break even from buying solar from the benefits you're getting from it. If it takes that long and you're considering selling your house in the next 3 to 5 years, then you probably shouldn't get solar. But if you're thinking about you're probably going to live in your house for at least another 7 to 10 years, then yeah, absolutely, it's going to start to make a lot more sense. And this is an important step if you're considering any upgrades for your house. If you're planning to move in 3 to 5 years or even 5 to 10 years, you want to know how it's going to affect the resale of your home. And then you're going to look at how much value does it add for you while you're living in the house, because all of these things are going to make a big difference for you and for your family. And if you want a detailed analysis of your specific situation and how specific upgrades would affect your home value, reach out. Our contact info is down below. We also have a home value calculator down there. If you have a home in San Diego County, you want to know how much it's valued at today. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next one.